Hi, this is David with entry number 563. I'm recording another entry today because I kind of had an epiphany uh, while I was, I don't know, getting ready this morning in regards to the fact that I haven't really ever discussed, I think, in great detail my love for hamburgers, and they're pretty much my favorite food. If I had to say, like if someone asks me always like, what kind of food do you like, or like what's your favorite thing to eat, like I always tell them hamburgers, because I don't really think there's anything that kind of, sorry about that kind of satisfies the gustatory experience quite like hamburgers. And so yeah, they're my favorite. Oh, so they built like this park here recently, and there's a couple fish in it. You can't see it, but I don't know why, but there's this huge pond, and the two fish are over there fighting. I don't know. Maybe there's just something there to the animalistic experience, I suppose. Well, anyway, hamburgers. They're always my favorite, and I think they're so good because they're very kind of what do you call it? Democratic. They're a very democratic food, meaning that you could have very, very highfalutin versions and very lowbrow versions, like you could get at a convenience store, which I would say is the lowest of the lowbrow. But it doesn't really matter because both of these kind of facsimiles will satisfy you to a certain extent, and I just think they're really good at the end of the day. They're simple. They're something that most people can cook. Maybe not cook well, but you can pretty much always be guaranteed to be able to, fry up the meat and put it on top of a piece of, bread or bun or whatever you have. And so, really, I think in that regard, it's a very democratic and even fair food. And I don't think not many foods you can say that about. I mean, to some extent you have like something like pizza, but with pizza you still have issues with being able to cook it. I don't think everyone can cook pizza. Or, definitely not cook it well. Pizzas take skill, and sure, you could make a pizza at home, but 9 times out of 10, even like a crappy Pizza Hut pizza is probably better than what you could cook at home. So I don't know, that might be a controversial statement, but I think that if you really look at empirically, like if you took what you cooked at home and you brought it to like a Pizza Hut and you sold it to someone and they paid their money for it, I'm not sure how many people would be like really happy with home cooked pizza, like from most people's kitchens or whatever. But regardless, hamburgers are something that everyone can cook, and they just satisfy something so deep, I think, in the human condition. That might sound like maybe over dramatization of something of this, but I really feel that there's a lot of credit that should be given to something that can check that many boxes, because I don't think that many foods can. So yeah, that's why I love hamburgers. And now I'll just in this video, in further videos, I'll talk about different components, or I'll break down the components. But for the rest of this video, I think I'll talk about what is a hamburger and what isn't a hamburger, because this is something that a lot of people get confused or don't really know a clear idea of what a hamburger is. And then that might sound silly to a lot of people, but really to me there are very specific definitions that need to be kind of well defined in order to kind of know what a hamburger is and what a hamburger is not. And so I'll start by saying a hamburger in its most simplest form is squishy bread, white squishy bread, and a beef patty. Not steak, not a cut, but it must be a patty made of ground or minced meat. You can do it by hand, you can do it by machine, you can do it however the hell you want, but it must be ground meat. Beef, not meat. Beef, I should say. Beef. So you can have people call it chicken, turkey, salmon, fish, whatever, lamb, pork. Those aren't burgers to me. Those are sandwiches. I don't care really how anyone else feels about this, but that's like a one point that I refuse to kind of waver on. Hamburger is beef. At the end of the day, hamburger is always beef. So the other piece is the bun. Now, the bun is kind of another controversial point because a lot of people think that you can just put any kind of bread will do, like sandwich bread, Wonder Bread, rye, brioche, whatever. And I think there's legitimacy to all those points, but it must be a bun. It cannot be bread. So that just means that it must be in the shape of a bun. If you use bread, it stops becoming a hamburger, and that's where you get something called a patty melt, which is like a diner, classic diner thing. And I think that's fine. Patty melts can be good, but don't call patty melt a hamburger because it's not. And then that's as much as we'll get into today, because there is like a lot of other stuff that you could talk about, right? There is like toppings and grit and cooking methodology and all that stuff, and I will get to that. But for today, this is what I wanted to talk about. So why I like it and what it is. Hamburgers. So tomorrow I'll try and talk about something else, like maybe cooking methodology or toppings or something else like that. But every day for the next 3 or 4 days, I'll try and think of something else to say, because there's a lot of stuff that is in my head, and I just felt like maybe I should try and record a little bit of it before, like, one day I forget about all of it. So actually, one more thing I should say before I end. A brief history on hamburgers is that the hamburger is a sort of invention of German immigrants, and I think a lot of people know that. Hamburg is a area of Germany, I think a city, and in that area they are famous for like making these like mincemeat cutlets kind of thing. And when they came to the US in mass droves, they brought this kind of cooking to the US market, and you originally had something called like Hamburg steak, which is like something that they eat a lot in Japan and here in Korea to some extent. But it's like basically you just make a hamburger patty, or you make a patty with mincemeat and you put some filler in it, like egg and breadcrumbs, and maybe some onions and garlic, and you kind of fry it up on both sides, and you serve that with like gravy, and it's really good. But that's not a hamburger. So Hamburg steak is a different monster. But basically, there's a kind of a a controversy over like where the first hamburger was sold, and there's a couple places that are always mentioned, but I think the number one kind of contender for where it was invented is a place called Lewis Lunch. I think it's in Connecticut, or maybe somewhere else, somewhere in New England, and it's essentially like they take the hamburger and they put it in like a cage, like a metal cage, and then they have these like vertical broilers that have like a slot that the cage fits in, And normally, you would have the cage like this, but when you put it in, they put it in like this, and the heat elements are on both sides. And so they put this thing in, and it just like fries it on both sides, and they use bread, like sandwich bread. And I think that's kind of, where the starting point of kind of the hamburger as we know it today started, because it's not like rye or like some kind of hearty wheat or like country loaf. It's like white, super white bread. And I think that's kind of where you started to see that development of the bun start to come into play. But I think at Lewis Lunch, like, they don't allow any kind of toppings. It's just like meat and mustard and maybe a lettuce leaf, but that's it. I don't think there's like tomato or anything on it. Maybe tomato, but it's a very simple, like kind of like Spartan version of the thing. So anyway, that's a brief history. I'll talk about the history a little bit more later when I get into like regional stuff, but that's where I'll end it today. Anyway, I know this was long, and a lot of kind of people I don't think care about this stuff, but it's something that I really have like passion for. I know it might sound silly, but it's something that I really care about. And if you ever like see me in person or whatever, and you want to talk about hamburgers, I could talk about it for literally for hours. And it's something that, like I've said now a few times, that I have like a real energy to talk about it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you tomorrow about another aspect of hamburgers. So bye.